Welcome to Logistics Business Conversations, where we talk with key spokespeople in the logistics industry about topical issues. Hosted by Peter McLeod, editor of Logistics Business magazine.
Welcome to Logistics Business Conversations, another special edition recorded live from the Logistics Business podcast studio at IMHX. Today's edition is brought to you by Dexory and entitled The Future of Warehouse Visibility. I'm delighted to be joined today by Chris Coote, who's Dexory's Director of Product. Hi, Chris, and welcome to Logistics Business Conversations.
Yeah, great to meet you, Peter.
So, Chris, here we are at IMHX. What are you, as Dexory, talking about with your customers?
Yeah, a lot of the conversation starts with visibility. And, like what is visibility to customers? And a lot of the kind of the entry point to the conversation is, can you help us with our stock control? But really that for us is just the beginning of the conversation, because that's kind of what customers know today as visibility, because they deploy their teams currently manually to count stock or look for issues. But visibility and data for us goes a lot way beyond that.
So are you looking to help them today, tomorrow, or are you looking to help them over the next few years? How does it work?
We've got a warehouse intelligence platform today, which is all around helping our customers with integrity and what we class as optimization. So integrity is all about understanding, is the right thing in the right location in the warehouse, in the right quantities, and in the right storage conditions. Have you got damaged goods in there? Have you got hygiene issues in the locations, damaged rack? These sorts of things that impact everything from inventory availability to health and safety and so forth.
So what sort of businesses are you talking about here? Are they small to medium enterprises or larger ones?
It's a real mix, and I think it depends quite often around the type of product, the type of operation. Sometimes a smaller warehouse that's fast moving or with really, really high value goods, there's a higher risk profile there, so the solution makes sense. But we do operate with a lot of manufacturing and 3PL companies that are, on that much larger side.
So one of the things about logistics, I guess it's no different to many other industries in that respect. There's a heck of a lot of data out there, isn't there? There's a lot of stuff that can be measured, a lot of data that can be collected. Probably quite a lot of that is useless data, but in there is good data too. So can you just sort of run through what we mean by good data and how obtaining that and using that can benefit a business?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. We've spoken a lot recently in a lot of our media around what we class as our evolution of the warehouse. And what we've posed through some thought leadership is that warehouses are going to go through 4 stages. The first stage is, as you describe, kind of a blind warehouse, as we term it. They've not got good data. So they're making very reactive and late decisions. Then we talk about the observable warehouse. And this is really when we're capturing data, bringing in more signal, more information for people to make good decisions. We then go on to think about an intelligent warehouse. And that's where customers are turning their data into action. You can almost see the intelligent warehouse evolving into the co-pilot of your operations. It's helping the employees to make those better, faster decisions. And then in the future, we can talk about this in a minute, is the adaptive warehouse. How do you start to automate some of that decision-making and functionality? But going back to your point about visibility, it is really about how fast you turn raw data into action. And if you think about, a lot of our customers are saying, we don't want, lots of data and lots of noise. Although data is the starting point, we want actionable clarity. And a lot of that is, yes, you've got to get the data, but you need to interpret that data. So I think this is a really important point. When we see visibility, it's not just about seeing things with sensors. It's about how you interpret that data and turn that data into something of use. That could be hidden patterns within the data, things like that.
You touched on the warehouse of the future then. I've had this conversation about the warehouse of the future, for the past 20 years. And, that it always seems to be changing. We're taking early steps in an exciting new world of data and of actually reaching a point where we can manage that data and use that data. So what does that future warehouse look like from Dexory's perspective?
Yeah, I think that's one. Like I said, I think the crux of this is where businesses want to make better, faster decisions. But I think there's always been a lot of wasted and efficiency issues within warehousing. But I think it goes beyond that into warehouses wanting to understand, how can they be more resilient? How can they be more growth focused than kind of firefighting, reactionary focused? And I think data, like I say, is the way you can get to that. When you consider data for us, I think one of the enablers for actually being able to use data harder is AI is an obvious topic, right? AI is helping us to understand data very rapidly compared to what you could do even 6 months ago, but certainly several years ago. So that is a massive enabler technology for making this become a reality. I also think really specific domains such as agentic AI. When you look around IMHX, there's not too much mention of agentic AI, but across industries in general, agentic AI is being a hot topic of conversation. And I don't think people are really leaning into that or knowing what to do with it. but as a technology that can help us solve these problems, automate faster and pick data faster, I think it's definitely going to be an important technology for the industry.
I guess when we look back on 2025, 10 years in the future, as we always do with the benefit of hindsight, we think, wow, we didn't, I wish we knew what we knew then, what we know now. But it does feel like these are very early steps along the AI route. It's exciting times. So do you believe AI is going to play a very important part in warehouse operations in the future?
I think it will play a massive role. I think with most industries, it's going to play a massive role. And to your point, like when we look back, I think it's hard to predict how fast AI is going to evolve. Like every month, new models are coming out and it's evolving and it seems to be getting exponentially faster. But I think technology will butt up against like human behavior, human psychology, business transformation. So I think we've got this period where the art of the possible is huge. It's super exciting. There's loads of things we could do. And I think finding those killer use cases that are going to lean into that is really important. But then I think there's this period of transformation, but also trust building. Technology providers that are providing these solutions need to provide measurable value to customers. They need to prove that the technology is improving efficiency by X or changing growth for the business by Y. I think over time, slowly adopting these technologies on lower risk things, building up that trust, industries in general will start to lean into it more, look for bigger risk, higher value use cases. I think hard to predict how long that human behavior journey will take, the industry transformation journey will take, but I think it'll be quicker than a lot of what people think.
Over the years, I pick up terms across the industry. I think the first time I heard the expression supply chain resilience was around about the time a volcano was going off in Iceland or a ship was getting stuck in the Suez. But nowadays, resilience seems to be on the front of mind across all organizations all the time, not least because of the global geopolitical situation. So when your customers come to you, do you see resilience coming up, the growing list of business priorities?
I think they don't necessarily term it resilience, but they talk about flexibility, being able to flex their workforce, flex their operation to match like new demand, rather than like having to build a business based on what they have around them. They can actually like flex their operation to match changing market demand. They never really say, we want to solve for resilience. It's more like the things they're talking to are kind of talking to the topic of resilience.
And sustainability is another big issue. I guess if you're helping your customers run an optimized warehouse, probably by definition, that's one with low waste or zero waste and little or low carbon use. Is that an area of a business you can specifically target?
Yeah, I think like you just described there, like it's almost, some of it's kind of implied that if you're solving for optimization and efficiency, you're naturally then solving for sustainability. But I do think when you consider the broader field of like digital twins and sensing technology, this data, I think data in terms of performance of buildings becomes also important. So are you sensing the temperatures within the warehouse? Are you sensing the outside temperature? So you can kind of like, in terms of building management systems and things like that, you can optimize the inside space of your warehouse. So I think the first part is getting the visibility into the data of how you are performing, like these other things. Then you can start to understand like, well, how do we improve that? And I think running a more efficient operation, a more optimized operation naturally will start to be more sustainable as well.
So as a director of product, how does that work? Are you pushing ideas into the market, or are you providing the market with solutions that they seem to need?
I think there's a delicate balance there. I think there's some really clear use cases that the market, a lot of the jobs that the market needs to do, use cases that they need solving or problems that need solving. And I think that's really, really clear. That's how you can deliver immediate value. But I think there's also that we need to help shape the market. With technology, you can help drive a very different looking world. So there's an element of kind of market making as well with this stuff. You have to kind of show what is possible. And I think a lot of that then comes down to like the measurable value thing on the other side. If there's a little bit of skepticism about, applying AI there or there, you hear a lot about like, AI giving bad hallucinations and bad results and things like that. Again, it comes back to that trust building, proving evidence that we've applied this technology, it has improved you here. So, lean into it and start to trust this technology more.
So forgive my naivety, but would you start a project with a blank sheet of paper, inverted commas, obviously, or do you take a technology that exists and make it better or adapt it to do more?
I think the first thing you do with a blank piece of, like, from a product point of view, is understand, like, what are the jobs to be done in this business? What are the problems that they're facing? So, like, we're not making up problems or jobs. Like, you've got the ground zero of, like, here's a thing that needs solving. I think then whether you use existing technologies to solve for that, or AI is just another tool for the job. You should only generally apply AI to things that need AI. We don't want, not in the world of making up stuff just to put, AI stamps on things, I think. But, it has got a place, and I think it is a technology that will transform this industry.
Visibility is a big issue. There's a great demand for it, and it's a demand that Dexory is well placed to help with. So how do you go about giving a business greater visibility of its products?
Yeah, so Dexory is a two-part solution. We've got a robot which gathers data with full-time within warehouses, near real-time, and that's providing real-time actionable insights into the business. Fun fact, we're coming up to 1 billion scans in November. So, we're scaling the product worldwide in about 11 different countries at the moment. We're getting a lot of data coming in. The customers don't just want data. You kind of get in this data overload situation. It's like, okay, here's some data. Great. Now I need some analysts to look at this data. That's all very well, but if an analyst looks at it in a week's time, that's a week's worth of compounding issues or operational problems that problem is butted up against. So really, we need to, when I talk about timeliness of data and timeliness of action, we need to be capturing the data with our robot, processing that data, and getting you to an actionable insight, within minutes or hours, not within days. And I think that's a really important thing around visibility, that data should be timely, complete, and accurate. I think one of the timely part is one of the key ones. How quickly can you get someone from something occurring in the warehouse to telling them about it and telling them what to do to solve it? And I think the old kind of manual cycle counting, for example, if I go back to inventory counting, that might have taken place over 3 or 4 weeks or a couple of months just to count through the warehouse manually. We're now doing that every day. So we can tell you, hey, this thing's gone today, so go and solve for that now, so you've not got a stock out issue in tomorrow, 3 days time, 4 days time.
So we talked earlier about good data. Is there such a thing as good visibility or bad visibility?
Again, I think it's like the data overload thing. If we're passing people loads and loads of data, they don't know what to do with it. But actually that links on to another point, which is around almost action overload as well. Because actually in a lot of these warehouses, we're finding a lot of activity, and they're like, well, do we solve for first? So I think good visibility doesn't just give you the actionable insight. It tells you which ones to act on first. It starts to measure value and impact of doing the activities. So, you need to know what is the biggest bang for your buck with that list of 200 things you've got. You don't want to solve for them all, but you want to solve for maybe the top 20% that's going to change your business today, tomorrow.
In our pre-record chat, I mentioned that Dexory was a startup, and you were very clear to correct me and say it's a scale-up. So perhaps you can tell me a little bit more about Dexory, its founding and its growth.
Yeah, growth's been spectacular. Dexory actually has existed as a business for around 10 years. We started out as a company called Bots and Us that was looking at robots in the retail space and had success there. But actually, we saw a massive opportunity to take our technology into the warehousing and logistics space. I started at Dexory around 3 years ago, which is when we launched the Dexory brand, which was the brand solving for warehousing. Since then, like I say, we've scaled into over 11 countries. We've got a manufacturing facility just outside London. It's going well.
Sounds like a very powerful UK success story.
It is a very powerful UK success story. We've had a lot of investment in our robot technology, making it robust, making it being able to sort of scale well. We're now putting the same emphasis into our software, so we can help with that issue from, data to actionable insight and quantification, and then the evolution of warehouse journey. We're here to solve for the future of the warehousing.
What's your customer mix? What are the verticals you're working in, and what are the similarities and indeed differences as you sort of move across, for example, from pharma into automotive?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities. Yeah, we do pharma, manufacturing, 3PLs are a massive customer of ours. I think similarities-wise, they all want to run more efficient operations. I think there's probably more similarities than there are differences. Labor shortage is I know this has been a topic for a long time, but it's a real one, right? Labor shortage is still a thing. So being able to do more with less, being able to power up and augment the workforce with better quality decision making is real, and being able to move that workforce onto a higher value activity still exists as a problem. There are definitely nuances between operations. A lot of the nuance comes into they all need to understand, is everything in the right location? So from an stock integrity point of view, that tends to be common. When you get into like optimizations, like how do I treat my stock in terms of, do I care about outbound speed? There's some nuance there between like manufacturers need good immediate availability because they can face penalties if they can't get a component to line side. So like they might hyper index on, an optimization metric there, or 3PLs might be more concerned around, outbound operations and availability to customers. So there are some nuance, but there's also a lot of similarities.
Now, Chris, thank God you're not in sales, so you can tell me the truth here. Businesses make decisions based on ROI. Sounds from what you're explaining that Dexory can prove a very strong case when it comes to return on investment.
Yeah, for sure. And we try and quantify everything we do with our customers because, like I said, we need to build that trust that, actions are making change over time. So we build not only, discuss ROI from a sales cycle point of view, but we start to build ROI into our tooling. So actually people on the ground, people in the management positions can see every day that the work they're doing is having an impact and correlating that back to the ROI. So yeah, I know it's a very credible and easy to translate ROI for us.
So Chris, as we come towards the end of this edition of Logistics Business Conversations, perhaps I can just create a scenario for you. I'm a customer with a warehouse and it's not optimized. Maybe I think it is, but it isn't. And I come to your booth at IMHX and I'd say, you've got 30 seconds. How can you help me?
Yeah, I think the first thing I'd say to you is, are you optimizing on a good foundation of truth? So, the primary part of our solution is being able to, make sure your warehouse is as you think it is. And then I'd say from you, like how are you served with optimization today? Because a lot of WMS providers don't provide good optimization solutions, or they're not matching the needs of the business. So for us, it's understanding like, where do you need to index? What are your KPIs that you need to optimize for? And we've got a lot of the tools built into our software now that enable you to do that.
Chris, it's been a great pleasure talking to you today.
It's been great talking to you as well, Peter.
Thank you for joining me today in our studio here at IMHX. Apologies to the audience if you're getting a little bit of background noise. It's a busy old show. But I want to say thank you to Dexory for supporting this edition of Logistics Business Conversations, and also to you, the listener, for joining us today. Wherever you get your podcasts from, please subscribe to Logistics Business Conversations to make sure the next edition is delivered straight to you as soon as it's released. Until then, it's goodbye from Chris Coote.
Goodbye. Thanks for listening.
And it's goodbye from me, Peter McLeod. Goodbye.